Hello, everyone. Welcome to the end of March. I don't know about you, but I'm tired. The end of the first quarter of 2026. Now, when I say first quarter, from a business standpoint, fiscal years are broken down into quarters every 3 months. So January, February, March is one quarter. April, May, June is the second quarter. July, August, September is the third quarter. And then October, November, December is the final quarter, which covers the full year. Now, some businesses and some corporations are on a different fiscal year. For instance, when I was at ESPN, the fiscal year ended in October. So the new fiscal year began November, December, January. That was the end of a quarter. And then February, March, April, May, June, July. And I say that because everyone works differently. And if you're out there looking for funding, money, investors, or anything like that for the type of projects you might be working at, then you need to make sure any company, corporation, or business know what fiscal year they're in. Now, me as a small business owner with my own production company and my own consultant firm, for me, the fiscal year is the calendar year. Regular calendar year starts January, February, March. So, okay, enough of that. But I just wanted to let you know, for me, it's the end of the first quarter. And I've got to sit down and do my expenses and see what I've done. It's been a pretty decent quarter. Unlike a lot of these other people, I'm not vested into the stock market, so I don't care about the stock market. One of the things that my posts are about what I do in the business, what I continue to do as I get ready to turn 67 in July. So if you've seen several of my posts, a lot of my posts are on the Instagram stories, threads, and reels, TikTok, Snapchat, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Now, if you're following me on Snapchat, you know that Snapchat is 24 hours and it goes and comes. So the Dunn Talks for the month of March are here on YouTube. So I do little small snippets in other platforms. I might do a lot of them on the Instagram platform, and those are in forms of posts to stories and threads. So if you haven't checked out my Instagram, please do so. What I want to talk about for the month of March, it's pretty random right now because of all the things that I've done, but March wasn't a bad month. So the Dunn Talks are dealing more with a lot of things that I experience, witness, and things that I wanted to share with you. My travel, oh my goodness, all the crazy stuff with the TSA, delays, weather, pilots. I got through it, and I'm getting through it, and I still have more trips to go. But I'm a people watcher. So I don't get upset, and it doesn't bother me to have delays. I'm not crazy about 15-hour travel days, but I can deal with it. So one of my trips was Tucson, Arizona for AEW wrestling. So that was a good trip. That was a good trip, and if the big story during the month of March was Savannah Guthrie's mother, who was kidnapped, abducted, and that was her hometown, Tucson, Arizona. And I would say that going to Tucson, there was a lot of sympathy, empathy, and a lot of mourning in that city. And the city definitely was feeling it, and you could feel it when you traveled into that city. So my heart definitely goes out to Savannah Guthrie and all that she's dealing with on these days. Another event that I did also in the month of March was soccer for Apple TV. That was interesting because one of the discussions, or I should say one of the disconnects that we had with our production crew was dealing with the Montreal soccer team. We had French people in the production truck, and there was a communications gap, and that communications gap was basically nomenclature and people getting the right terminology. In the business, we use the term clean feed, dirty feed, which means graphics or no graphics. Well, there was confusion between the French and the English-speaking transmission and technical people. And as I listened to this conversation, they weren't getting it. I don't understand why, but they weren't understanding what the French people were trying to say. We as, Americans who think we're always right, they were trying to explain what they needed, and we kept trying to explain what it was and what it is, rather than listening to what they needed. So after hearing this go on for at least 30, 35 minutes, I kind of stepped in and explained to my American counterpart what the French were trying to explain to us. And once I was able to do that, everything went well. The nice thing about it is the person in the end, the French person, came over to me and he thanked me for clearing that up so that everything went well with the broadcast. But communications, folks, take the time to listen to people. You might be that person that can help solve a dilemma simply because you're listening and you're observing and you're paying attention to a situation and realizing these two are not communicating. They're on two different wavelengths. You might be that person that can bridge the gap. And I happen to be that. I mean, very simple, but it could have led to a lot more confusion, and I could see there was a lot of frustration with it. Another event that I did I hadn't done in a long time was boxing. And I did that in Orlando at one of my favorite hotels, Caribe Royale. And I did post that on Instagram, so there should be a post on Instagram as well as Facebook about the Caribe Royale boxing. And I did that for a streaming network called DAZN, D-A-Z-N. And we were using Live View. So first time ever working with that group. And I was the tape AD. I was doing something a little bit different. I hadn't done it in a long time, but basically I had two operators with machines that had 4 replays with a total combination of 7 cameras, plus a commercial reel. And we were building packages which were, many highlights of each round of boxing. So that was fun. So when you think about, in a given month, all the different things that go on, I did wrestling, soccer, and boxing all in 1 month. And March was March Madness, basketball. I didn't do any basketball. And the start of the UFL, United Football League, I didn't do any football. So that was a little bit different, but I'm okay and I'm liking it because, again, it keeps me relevant, keeps my skill levels high, and doing things at the high school where I was running audio and lighting for the school production of basically a competition called Mr. and Miss Seabreeze. So I am in the process of doing that. And I say in the process because the actual show doesn't take place until April. So we've had several rehearsals during the month of March. TSA travel wasn't that bad, not at least in the city I was traveling from. The nice thing about where I live in Daytona Beach, Florida, Daytona is a small airport, so a lot of the TSA agents know me. A lot of the ticket agents, they know me. So very few delays, if any, at the airport that I experience. And because of how I fly, a lot of my connections are through big cities. Because I fly Delta a lot, there's always a connection in Atlanta. Boy, Atlanta was a mess, but I don't have to deal a lot with the big cities because I'm making connections through Atlanta, Charlotte, Washington, Utah, you get the picture. I'm not dealing with the massive TSA lines. I'm dealing with the small airports on the front end. And this past weekend, right before the end of March, I was in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, and that airport was smaller than Daytona Beach's airport. So no lines, no delays, and I'm TSA, I'm pre-checked as well as clear. So I can get through lines, even in major airports, within 15 minutes, as long as you bring your behind to the airport early. Okay. Another thing that was a proud moment this month for me as a teacher at a high school was students getting back with me and acknowledging some of the successes that they have and are having after graduating from high school. One young lady who's up at FSU, Florida State University, working for Seminole Productions, she contacted me because she was working with one of the ESPN directors that I worked with down at the Wide World of Sports in Orlando. And he was impressed with how well she was trained, and she was impressed with him, and she was very excited about all the great things that she was doing for the ACC network, working for ESPN. When I told her that that could happen when she was in my classroom, she didn't believe it, but now she's experiencing it. And another young lady who's graduating this year, this June in 2027, she's got a full ride to FSU, and she's going to be going into video production, film, and she asked me the other day what minor she should have, and I told her, do what I did. I was a communications major. I had a special interest in radio and television, but I minored in psychology and philosophy and got my associate's degree in psychology and philosophy. And by doing that, I was able to become a counselor with a psychology degree. So if you're on your way to college and you're trying to think about, you have a specialty or something that you want to do and you're looking for a minor, communications. Every corporation, every business in the world has a communication department. They have a sales department, they have marketing, but they all have a communications department. What you have to do is look at the details of that company. You use the internet, go online, go on the computer, look up the company and look at all of their detail on their website and click on the communications tab. Look at what's the umbrella of communications, because the key thing about communications is it covers everything. It can cover everything. It's a catch-all department for a lot of companies that don't want to narrow themselves into being a marketing department or a sales department, because that is a specialty and a lot of people have those special skills. But communications department requires soft skills, But if you are trained in a specific area, you can use that specific training along with the soft skills to do the job of that company. Once you understand what that company's product is all about, you can become communications director. And let me tell you, working in the television business and the technology and understanding technology and how it works and knowing how to communicate with people, you can literally create your own position and develop your own position. Because quite frankly, folks, if you're looking for the traditional job for a company that you think you're going to be at for several years and retire and get a 401k and a pension, forget it. The chances of that happening is, I'm not going to say slim to none, but it's a 40% chance that you'll land a job at a company where you'll stay there more than 5 years. Folks that I know at ESPN have been there 15, 20 years. And with all the layoffs that have happened, I was full-time there, and I only made it 5 years. So to make it that long, it's rare. It's rare. So make sure you have soft skills, hard skills, a specialty area, and that you're well-versed. And when I say well-versed, I mean you can speak about any topic. You can talk about anything. That's one of the reasons I have my multiple screens where I'm watching CNN, ABC, CBS, Fox, everything. Because I've got to keep up with what's going on in the world so that regardless of the type of conversation, I know a little bit about everything, just enough to be dangerous or just enough to be able to hold a casual conversation in the airport, on a plane, sitting next to somebody that has nothing to do with anything that I'm involved in. But I can learn what they're doing and learn just enough to be dangerous to have that conversation. So be worldly, stay up on things. You got to watch news, folks. I'm not saying watch news, like me. I'm a news junkie. But if you do 30 minutes of news a day, that's enough. 30 minutes of national news a day, that's enough. And don't just do one news. Do 30 minutes of CNN one day, then 30 minutes of Fox another day, 30 minutes of the BBC, then 30 minutes of another network. Just spread it around, and over 7 days, you will have experienced 7 different news organizations. And if you're watching open-minded and objectively, you'll see the bias. There is bias, folks. I'm not going to, kid you. There is bias, but you'll see it. You'll understand it. If you're just watching 30 minutes of news, then depending on that news network or source, they're just reporting the news. 9 times out of 10, there's little to no bias tied to just reporting the news. So get in the habit of doing that. You can't walk around and get all of your news from just social media. That's where the problem is. That's where the problem is. And you're going to get suckered into AI. That's a whole nother thing that I'm not even going to go into right now. But, just understand how to glean through fake news, real news, biased news, one-sided news. There's nothing wrong with it. That's what it is. News has changed. Back in when I was growing up, you had 4 networks, 4 dependable networks, and that was it. You had ABC, CBS, NBC, PBS. That was it. Those were your 4 news sources. And then you had an independent station that might do news. But 5 news channels. That was it. Me growing up as a baby boomer, when I started paying attention to the world in the 70s, that was it. 5 news sources. There was no cable. There was not all this other stuff. There was no computers, no internet. None of that. 5 news sources. And I would still say they're somewhat trusted, but you have to watch just the network 30-minute newscasts. Not the long format, not all these talk shows and talk radio. And no, 30 minutes, quality news. You'll be able to understand what's going on in the world, and you'll get the different perspectives from all 5 sources. All right? Especially the BBC. I'm a big fan of the BBC. The BBC provides news based on how they see the world, and especially the news from the United States. It's from a BBC's perspective of how they see us. That's important. That's important. You know, I talked about the students, and one of the other students that's graduating or just is about to graduate, she's 18 years old, and she's gone through one hell of a life at 18 already. But she finally got through high school. And I'm very impressed with this young lady because she used to get in trouble a lot at the high school, and she was in my my ISS, in-school suspension. And she did things she wasn't supposed to do, but at the same time, the teachers also targeted her. And unfortunately, we as teachers, and I say we because I was guilty of doing it until I caught myself, when you're trying to teach in a classroom and you've got 1 or 2 people that are going to drive you nuts, you want to get rid of them. You don't want them in the classroom. They're a disruption. So what do? You write a referral, you send them out the room, you get rid of them. It's not a good optic. I have to admit that. But the one thing that I did was I stepped into ISS, in-school suspension, or the detention room, and then I took a different approach. I started using my counseling skills and my psychology degree to start listening to teenagers. And as I listened, I learned more about them, their lives, what they were experiencing, the problems they were going through. This young lady who I'm referring to specifically, she came into ISS. She did things in the classroom so she could be sent to my detention room because she needed someone to talk to. And I would listen. Just listen for an entire 50-minute class period. I would listen. Sometimes she would get detention for an entire day just so that she could talk to me. And I would listen. And I think the biggest impact that she's had on me that I'll never forget was we were having a conversation. I don't even remember what it was. And I asked her, okay, well, you know, I turned around, I was doing something, and I said, well, what time is it? And I have a, analog clock in the room. She couldn't tell time. You hear what I'm saying? She was 16 years old and could not tell time on an analog clock. She was embarrassed. Luckily, nobody else was in the room. So she was in detention by herself. That shook me. That shook me because I taught, my wife and I, we taught our kids time, just like cursive writing is another thing that you don't see a lot of. But we took our time. And when I realized she didn't know how to tell time, I wasn't sure how to approach her and ask her without making her feel bad, but I don't know what I did and how I said it exactly, but I do know I did say, "Can you read that clock?" And she wasn't shy or embarrassed. She just said, no, Mr. Dunn, I can't. And rather than doing what I would have normally done, like, "You've got to be kidding me. Really? How come you didn't learn it?" I stepped back, paused, looked at her. She really kind of looked away, and I said, "Do you want to learn?" And without hesitation, she said, "Yeah." What a moment. Talk about a teachable moment. Within 15 minutes, I taught her how to tell time on an analog clock using math principles, the 5 times table. I kept it as simple as I could. I asked her, did she know how to count money? She knew how to count money. She knew her multiplication tables, but she couldn't tell time on an analog clock. How many of you still, I would hope you know it, but 6 times table, 7, 8, 9 times table, those are tough. She knew all that, but she couldn't tell time on a clock, which was in intervals of 5. Wow. So I taught her how to tell time. She's graduating this year from high school. She's turning 18. And the last time I saw her was probably 9 months ago, I think. The end of last school year. She sees me. She hasn't been in detention in a year and a half. Her grades have gone up. She's a solid B student. But when she sees me now in a building, what she would do is, Mr. Dunn, what time is it? And I would look at my watch and she goes, no. And she would point, would take me into a classroom and point to the clock on the wall and tell me the time. I'm never going to forget that. I will never forget her. A 16-year-old. That was an impact like no other. These are the types of experiences now that I take to heart and I cherish, especially with adult kids now, with my own 2 adult children and 2 grandkids, ages 15 and 9. They are way advanced than a lot of these kids that I'm encountering at the high school level. It's just a different time. Education. And then there's the one who really surprised me. I won't even mention her name, but if she ever watches this particular video, she'll know who she is, because she turns 21 this year in 2026, and she's already graduated high school, had a baby, got married, and started a business. Former student of mine. I told her what life was like and what she could do one day in a class setting. And apparently, she listened. I didn't expect her to leave high school, get married, start a business. I thought she would be the type that would go to college. But again, she had a rough life. She didn't have the support at home. She didn't have to take care of her mom because her dad abandoned her. But yet at the same time, she wanted to be on her own. And she has been working, I would say, since she was 15, 16 years old. She's always worked. So I guess it didn't surprise me that she decided to start a business. And it's all about food, bakery, that type of stuff. And she's done it well, and she's very successful doing it. I mean, it's still, year one, but she did it. Before she turned 21, she did it. So let's talk about life. In the month of March, these are the types of encounters that I've had. Business, television, listening to people, experiencing people in the airports, TSA, travel, conversations on the plane, talking to people who have nothing in common, and some real heavy discussions with some MAGA people. But I can handle it. I can handle it. A lot of the MAGA world that meets me during my travel, they're not too sure about me. They think they know I'm not MAGA, but they might think I'm a Republican. Folks, this world is not about Democrats, Republicans, and independents. If that's the only way you see people through their politics, you need to change that attitude. I register to vote. I vote based on the person, not just their politics, the person. Because I can agree with their politics, but dislike them as a person. I'm not going to vote for them. You have to be real. And see, I don't know if I talked about this in my January Dunn Talks or not, but I was a lobbyist for 3 years when I worked in public television, and I had to go up to Tallahassee to get funding for the public television station. There was opportunity for corruption at levels that you would not believe. I was told by my boss back when I was working at Daytona State as the vice president and general manager of the public television station that decisions at the Capitol will be made in the dark of the night over brown liquor. He wasn't lying. He was absolutely 100% on target. But the key thing was, you had to be invited to that table to participate. So, how did you get invited? It wasn't based on your looks specifically. It was based on how you came across as a person. And if you happen to be a woman, if you happen to be black, and you happen to be dealing with somebody that wasn't a male chauvinist, then or prejudice or racist, then you got the opportunity to sit at the table where the decisions were being made. And I've had that opportunity many a times to also be corrupted. But I've got to look myself in the mirror every morning. And when I look in the mirror, I see this. When I walk out of my house and I go into the world, I don't see this a lot. In other words, I don't see my complexion in the world unless I'm looking for it. I see others. Doesn't bother me, but I'm conscious of it. I'm conscious of what I wear, how I dress, how I speak, and how I approach people, because they're judging me first on sight. You can say whatever, people can say whatever they want. They're a bunch of BS. Oh, we don't judge you by the color of your skin. When you don't know anything about me and you see me coming, you're making a judgment of who you think I am until you get to know me, until I speak. You're looking at my face, you're looking at my hair, you're looking at my dress, you're looking to see if I'm clean shaving, you're looking at how I present me. That is how the world sees every individual, white, black, female, doesn't matter. Nationality. If they can look at you and they can make a preconceived notion of what your nationality is, if they think you're Latino, if they think you're Jewish, if they think you're Arab, if they think you're some type of ethnic group, then they will form an opinion based on what they see. If you're in tune to that, if you're aware of that, then you can nip that in the bud if you have an encounter with that person, because you already know they have a preconceived notion of who they think you are. Your job? Show them who you are, the real you, but at the same time, squash that stereotype that they might be thinking. I can't tell you how many times I've done that in my travels. On a plane, people striking up a conversation with me. They automatically assume I'm a ball player. Well, yeah, I did. But why is that the automatic assumption? It's a stereotype. It's a stereotype. And because of that, that's the icebreaker for them. As long as I understand that, then I know how to deal with it. Because initially that's the icebreaker, but when we get into the conversation, I change that path real fast. Because I don't talk about sports when they start the conversation off that way. I redirect the conversation about my profession. And then I'll redirect it again about what they do. I let them talk. I let them tell me who they are. And that's how I develop a conversation and potential relationships with strangers and people that I don't know and I'm meeting for the first time. And because of their comfort with me, they open up and say things that they probably would have never said. And then when they get really comfortable and they see that I don't fit the stereotypical mode, then they will say something that's stupid and dumb, but you gotta forgive them, you know. Yeah, you know what? You know, you're different. I don't meet many black people like you. Oh, really? Thanks. That's a compliment. You're gonna get that. If you're a female, you have different things that you've got to overcome. If you're a black male, if you're Latino, Hispanic, because of all the craziness that's going on in the world, you'll be lucky if somebody even wants to talk to you, because the first thing they're thinking is that you might be an illegal immigrant. Holy cow. Stop calling people illegal. Undocumented, but not illegal. It's not a good phrase to use and to call somebody. You're an illegal immigrant. No, you're not. You're an undocumented person. Words matter, folks. Words matter. Like I said, a lot of experiences, a lot of things that I've experienced. One of the things that I'm going to wrap up the Dunn Talks for the month of March is the medical profession. Whew. I'm a caretaker. A support person for my wife. One of the things that you all have heard, you probably didn't pay a lot of attention to for various reasons, but you probably heard that the medical profession makes money off of you being sick. Their goal is not to get you well. Their goal is to keep you sick so that you purchase more medicine, and the insurance, big pharma, keeps you ill. Who is Big Pharma? I might put this video on the end of this because someone sent it to me, a young lady that I met who is from Poland, and she gave me one hell of a history lesson about holistic medicine and Haiti and the Polish and the French. You know what? Yeah, I never paid attention to that stuff. Now, I've heard about, they're trying to keep you sick and blah, 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 blah. But this particular video that I'm probably going to attach at the end of the Dunn Talks for you to see it and make your own judgment. There are three names. And I've encountered all three of those corporate entities in Big Pharma. First one, the Rockefellers. And the Rockefellers are here in Florida. The other one, Big Pharma, what is it? It's Carnegie. You've all heard of Mellon Carnegie and all the funds and all the money. And then the third, Kettering, Sloan Kettering. Those three make up Big Pharma. Rockefeller single-handedly changed the entire medical industry. Everything is built around Big Pharma. The whole medical industry. Do you realize holistic medicine was here with the indigenous people? Not just in America, the world. We have natural cures. This vessel, this earth suit that we live in, takes care of itself and can heal itself if you give it the proper things, proper nutrition. We're killing ourselves with the foods that we eat. We don't need to diet. You don't need to starve yourself. You can eat whatever you want as long as you do it in moderation. Take care of the body. Use the holistic herbs and natural things of the earth to take care of yourself. And just about any disease that you currently have, if you catch it early on, you can reverse it. Now, a lot of people say, well, that's brainwashing. Folks, until you have a loved one that has a disease, you're not going to believe it. But when you do encounter someone that does have that disease, you're going to start researching it. You're going to start finding out what the alternatives are. You know why? Because it's expensive as hell to get the holistic medicines, the holistic herbs, the holistic things that you need are expensive. You want to know why? Because insurance doesn't cover it. And it's priced out of the market. Why do you think the wealthy go after those things? Sometimes they go after it too late. When they realize that the medical profession in the USA doesn't work properly, it doesn't help them, and it's killing them, then they look for the holistic answers. But you better have the money, because it ain't cheap. And right now, I'm kind of a walking testimony now in the early stages of reversing my type 2 diabetes. And I was diagnosed in 2001. But I'm doing some simple things. Simple things. Not changing my diet, not restricting myself from eating certain things, just in moderation. And then taking the natural herbs and supplements that you can find in the health stores, that you can research, that you can see where it's from. And let me tell you right out, because this is what I did, and this is a mistake that we all make when we were trying to find the magic cure. There is nothing magic, folks. There is no one thing that's going to get rid of cancer or get rid of diabetes or get rid of obesity. You know, all of this stuff that we take, it's not reversing. It's maintaining so that you stay on it, so that you keep buying it over and over and over and over. If you truly, truly want to reverse it and wean yourself off of it, you got to make a conscious decision to do that. And then you have to have the discipline to do it. I discovered something called, or I didn't discover it, but a nurse, a black female nurse, shared with me some information. I was skeptical, of course, and you know, black seed oil. Okay. She shared her testimony with me about what she did with her father and her grandfather. Okay. I went and bought it. It sat. I didn't use it. I did my research, but I bought it. Then I heard some other people talk about it. I saw the research, and then of course the FDA, it's not approved, of course it's not approved. It's holistic medicine. Again, if I show that video at the end of my Dunn Talks, take the time to look at it. It's research, it's factual, and it's true. Because we all know someone that has a disease that the only thing they're able to do is keep taking the medicine to stay alive, not cure it, but to maintain a certain type of lifestyle so that they can live with it and buy the medication necessary for you to stay alive. That's the goal. That's the business of Big Pharma. So I'm experimenting. At 6'7", I'm experimenting. And the experiment seems to be working. I'm weaning myself off of certain medications. And I'm feeling great. There are no side effects. And the proof, the true proof, is going to be through blood work. When I go to my doctor in a couple of weeks in the month of April or May, and I get blood work done, I'll let you know. I'll let you know what he says. And when he says something that blows me away, and he asks me, well, what did you do? I'm not going to tell him. I'm not. Because my first thought's going to be, why didn't you know this? Why didn't you tell me? Were you not taught this? Or because you can't practice or share holistic medicine. Because if you do, then you lose money. I understand the truth. And unlike that phrase, you can't handle the truth. Oh, I can handle the truth. I'm just upset with myself that I didn't take the time to believe the truth in my younger days. It's always been there, folks. But we are so bombarded with information now that we can't discern what's real, what's fake, what's a scam, what's a money grabber. Because when you look at Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat, all the ads that pop up, TikTok, holy mackerel, you go nuts. You just keep clicking away or scrolling past. You don't pay attention. I'm in the television broadcast industry. I make a living making sure that the commercials run properly. So I pay attention to commercials, especially all of these pharmaceuticals that are on the air. It's crazy. Why would you want to take any of those when the side effects are horrendous? Oh, I just want to get rid of an ingrown toenail. Well, take this over the counter and it could get rid of your ingrown toenails, but at the same time, it might cause bleeding of the eye, hair loss, teeth falling out. Why would you why would you put yourself through that? But this is what people do. I haven't done that stuff. I was blessed enough that when I moved down to Florida in 1996, I looked specifically for a black doctor. Now, you can say whatever you want, but I know the history of African Americans when it comes to medicine and how we were used as guinea pigs, how we were used to determine the effects of medicine. But a lot of studies of all this medication that's out there was not done with black people in mind. So the quote unquote results and effectiveness and efficacy rates doesn't apply to many African Americans, or women for that matter of speaking. So you really have to understand who is controlling all these drugs. And those three names that I mentioned earlier, Rockefeller, Carnegie, Kettering, Sloan Kettering, they sit on every medical board. Someone from those three businesses sit on the medical boards of the government, and they dictate what gets approved and what doesn't. And holistic medicine that has cures and could reduce and solve a lot of the illnesses that we have in this world, it ain't profitable to be healthy. But the health food stores, let me tell you something. Some of that stuff, healthy, is worse than the disease that you may have. So, I'm going to wrap it up. Those are my Dunn Talks for the month of March, the end of the first quarter. This has been an interesting month. A lot of experiences. And again, dealing with a lot of health issues as it relates to my wife and me being a caretaker. But I'm still doing my research. I'm still looking for alternatives. And I'm trying to take care of this vessel as best I can. Or as my pastor used to say, this earth suit. I've said it, you might have seen my posts, but I want to be around to see 100. That is my goal. And I hope I can make that happen. So that's Dunn Talks for the month of March. And like I said, I'm going to put that video on the back end of this, and I hope you take the time to look at it. It's fairly long. It's probably about 20, 25 minutes. But once you watch it, if you know someone out there, it's going to give you a different perspective. And this video was sent to me from a holistic doctor whose heritage is Polish. And she gave me the history of Poland, Haiti, and the French. So, if you know that history, or if you don't know that history, look it up. Again, education is king. You gotta be knowledgeable. Nobody can take away your knowledge. So take the time to learn. Stay relevant. Stay relevant and take care of you. Okay? I'll see you at the end of April.